Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here again today. I'm slowly becoming part of this family, it would seem. So I'm here to discuss menopause. I was here previously, courtesy of Zipporah. We covered a bit of it, but because of time, there's a bit that we did not manage to discuss. But before I get into the point of management, which is what we didn't get to discuss, I will just go through briefly about menopause and overview, just for the ones who didn't get a chance to hear the talk. Now, menopause, as I like to think of it about women, posing with God. This is a talk I give to women of all ages, as long as you're in the reproductive age. I know the young ones are thinking, oh dear, why do I need to listen to menopause talk? I am so far from it. I'm a baby girl. Huh? But believe you me, as long as you have started the reproductive journey, you are on your way to menopause. And information is power. So by the time you get to menopause, you should be well armed with the information about what to expect through the transition, how to handle it, what is normal, what is abnormal, because only then will you be able to seek advice if you have this information. Okay? So menopause is usually described in a retrospective manner, meaning I don't make a diagnosis of a patient saying you have menopause just because you've come and said, oh, I've missed my periods for about 3 months and I'm around 47 years. There's a chance that you are getting into menopause, but menopause per se is made looking back and saying, okay, you're above 40 years, you have missed your periods for 12 months consecutively, most likely you're in menopause. So as doctors, we rarely get to do fancy tests to diagnose menopause. The criteria we use is one, your age. Because by definition, natural menopause should happen beyond the age of 40, okay? So we look at your age, we look at the symptoms you're presenting with, we look at the fact that you've missed your periods for the last 1 year, and then we say, okay, yeah, you're probably in menopause, okay? But of course, there are patients who don't fall in this criteria. There are people who get menopause way too early, below the age of 40. I do get once in a while such patients. Young girl in their late 20s or early 30s. And probably the first thing that brings them to hospital is they're struggling to conceive. And then they tell you, okay, my periods are also a bit heavy. And you do some tests and you realize their ovary function is already declining. They might be in early 30s or late 20s, but according to the ovary function, they're actually approaching menopause. They have premature ovarian aging or premature ovarian failure, okay? So this can happen. Then other patients, you'll find that they get menopause purely because of other underlying issues. For example, they probably had the uterus, not the uterus really, but the ovaries removed surgically for one reason or the other. Or maybe they went through chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and it interfered with the function of the ovary. Or maybe they had diseases that affected the ovary and the function declined prematurely. A good example in our setting is TB. Most people think of TB as kukohoa, lung disease. But TB can actually affect pretty much every part of the body. And when it comes to the reproductive system, if it knocks out the ovaries, you can actually go into menopause very early. If you have autoimmune conditions, again, this can happen. Autoimmune conditions means your own immunity attacking your natural healthy tissue. Instead of attacking diseases, instead of attacking infections, it's attacking your own body organs, okay? So this can happen. Women who smoke, cigarette smoking is known to drastically cause very rapid aging of your ovaries, okay? And then certain genetic disorders, but this is quite rare. But certain genetic disorders can also interfere with the function of the ovary. Then certain infections like mumps, the same way mumps would affect our brothers and affect the function in the testes. The same way mumps can also affect the ovaries, okay? The other thing is looking at your natural, your family history. If mom got menopause early, if your aunties, your sisters got menopause early, chances are you're going to get it around the same age as them, okay? If you started your periods early, chances are you're going to get menopause earlier than someone who started the menses a bit later. So the reproductive stages in a woman's life, from the time she starts her periods, what we call menarche, all the way through menopausal, the perimenopausal transition, which usually starts about 5 or so years before the periods, now you actually get into menopause. That whole transition, a woman needs to understand what's happening in her body, okay? So when you get to around the age of 35, you might be at the peak of your life, peak of your career. You have done your master's, you're pursuing your PhD, you've started your family, and really things are going great for you. Unfortunately, biologically speaking, this is when now you're going downhill, at least in terms of reproductive age. So you might not notice, but there are certain silent things happening in the background in your ovaries. Your ovary function starts to decline. You might, depending on when you are supposed to be getting menopause, because everyone has an assigned age by our good Lord, you might find that your cycle starts to misbehave, especially as you head towards your late 30s, as you're getting into your 40s. You start noticing the cycle length. In some women, they'll report, okay, my cycle used to be 30 days, now then it went down to 28, 24, now we're at 21, okay? And then when you get to mid-40s, now it even starts to lengthen. So that a woman tells you, oh, nowadays it's okay, I know it comes when it comes. It might disappear for 2 months, it might disappear, the cycle might take about 45 days and it will finally come. So those changes will happen. Now when you're transitioning to menopause, when you get to menopause, the earliest signs that you're going to see, typically what we see, the women fanning themselves. Huh? Can people stop looking where they are looking? Okay? So you notice that you're in praise and worship, others are this way, you are this way. Huh? That is normal because of the hormonal changes in menopause. The hormone estrogen has reduced in amount from your ovaries. So the ratio between two hormones, estrogen and progesterone, has tipped a bit. So now you start having these hot flashes. At night you might get a bit of night sweats. When the rest of the people are covering themselves with a duvet and with something else, you don't want to cover yourself. In fact, you wake up at night and your night dress and your bed sheets are drenched in sweat. That can happen. That tends to be the earliest symptom. But please note, not every woman will go through this. In fact, it's only a quarter of the women going through menopause transition who will experience severe symptoms. Some women go through it quietly. The only thing they notice is the period just stops. But other women will get these symptoms, but in varying degrees. Okay? Then they start noticing, if we go from head to toe, in the brain, certain changes will happen. You start being very moody in the house. This is a time when your children say, hey, and nowadays mom is just terror in the house. Every small thing, she's like a live wire, okay? She gets offended very easily, even by things that seem rather mundane, okay? Then other times you find you're just having a low mood and you cannot explain it. You really can't explain what is making you feel sad. But you just don't feel in touch with the rest of life. So you have a low mood and you can't explain it. Still in the brain, but this is much later down the line, post-menopausal, you start having what you call brain fog. I can't remember where I put my car keys. I can't remember where I put my journal. And that's even going far. I can't even remember where I put my glasses. And they're right here on top of your head. And everyone is thinking, what's going on? So it's because of these hormonal changes. You start having a certain mental fog. You really can't focus much. Okay? As you calm down, you notice skin changes. Your skin that was once nice and supple Now you need lots of moisturizers. You are experimenting with every moisturizer in the market to have soft skin, because you're noticing your skin is now getting quite dry very easily. Okay? Your nails, even your eyebrows, suddenly you need to camouflage because suddenly your eyebrows seem to be disappearing. Even your own hair, suddenly you're competing with your husband in terms of baldness. This can happen because of the shift in what we call androgens, the proportion of androgens against estrogen. Some women might even start having a bit of a few strands of hair under the chin. Again, because estrogen has gone down and now androgens seem to be taking over the scenario. And they seem to be controlling now your body functions, okay? When you come down to your heart, with time, in the postmenopausal age, your heart starts having issues, cardiovascular issues set in. This is a time when now heart disease, stroke, hypertension sets in, okay? As you're going down, we've discussed all that, around the trunk, this is the time where you're really struggling to lose weight. You starve yourself the whole day, but somehow the fat around your lower abdomen doesn't seem to go anywhere. For the ones who know what I mean. So you keep adjusting the dress code to cover the abdominal fat. Again, it's not because really it's not so much about your diet, it's more about the hormonal changes and how it affects fat deposition in your body, okay? When you come down to the reproductive system, we've mentioned the ovaries, the function is shutting down, periods are disappearing, then other issues come in. Vaginal dryness sets in. The things that women don't want to discuss, or they'll probably whisper in their chamas, okay? Low libido sets in. And mainly it's really because of this hormone called estrogen. It really controls a lot in a woman's body. This is a point where, as a woman, you need to discuss this very keenly with your husband. And so I usually encourage patients, come to the clinic with your partner. Let's have this talk together. Unless you walk this journey with this man, because realize this is the time this man is getting into a midlife crisis. And for you, this is the time, the only thing you're thinking of is the children to finish college and kazi ya kanisa. So you do not want him anywhere near you. Now, unless the two of you talk about this very, very frankly, so that he can support you through this. And I usually say so that he can start wooing you again, like the same way he did when you were a young girl. He needs to start wooing you again so that you can start having the desire for your husband again. Unless you have this candid conversation, this is when men start to stray. Because they feel, I am not satisfied in my marriage, then they look for the young girls. And this partly explains the HIV trend we are seeing in our country currently. We are seeing the new infections amongst our very young girls, 15 to 24. This is where our husbands are going now. It's the reality. So you need to have these conversations, as difficult as they are. You need to start having these conversations in the house, okay? And there are ways to handle this. Then the issue of bones. Bones start to become weak, what you call osteoporosis. Again, because of low estrogen levels. This is how you learn, oh, I was just in the bathroom, I slipped. Next thing I knew, I had a fracture. I was doing something in the kitchen, ndikajigonga kidogo, I hit myself a bit. Next thing I know, I have a fracture of the arm. Very, very simple event, and they lead to fractures. It's because your bones are becoming weak. So that is why you need to approach your healthcare provider. You need to approach a gynecologist when you're going through this transition, whether or not you've started noticing these symptoms, so that now they can do their own checkup and find out where you are at and see how to help you, because there are preventive measures to put in place to try and prevent such things, okay? So this is basically the gist of what menopause would be like. Now, when it comes to management, Management of menopause starts before menopause starts. Your lifestyle. While there's a set date that the good Lord has put for you and I when menopause will arrive, there are certain things that are in your control that you can do to try and make it a smooth transition. Lifestyle plays a key role. Your diet, inflammatory diets will make it much, much harder for you to go through this transition. By inflammatory diets, I mean if your diet consists more of things like wheat, animal protein all the time, whether it's dairy products, whether it's red meat, these are inflammatory diets. I'm not saying totally do away with meat, with animal products, because they do have their value in terms of nutrition, but you really need to consider doing more of plant protein. It is less inflammatory to your body, and it makes the transition much, much easier for you when the time comes. If you're used to a routine, a regular routine, exercise routine, then you find that transition is much easier for you. The cardiovascular changes, the bone changes, the mental fog, all that is bare minimum for people who are used to a very active lifestyle. If you're smoking, please stop today. It will be much, much harder for you to go through that transition now, I assure you. Because around this time is a time when certain gynecological cancers also start to show their head. Cervical cancer, ovarian cancer, cancer of the uterus, endometrial cancer, breast cancer. So this is a very critical period for a woman. And unless you had started a journey of healthy living from the time you were a young girl, it's going to be very difficult to try and change some things at this point. Okay? In terms of management, there's something called hormone replacement therapy, which we can offer the women for the various symptoms that they have. But the management is tailored to each patient. Not every patient is a good candidate for hormone replacement therapy. Not every patient needs antidepressants because they're having a low mood, unless they've been clinically diagnosed to be depressed. Not all situations of low mood is equals to depression. So there are drugs in the market that you can be given, and your gynecologist will help you to sort of come up with what works best for you. Now, aside hormone replacement therapy, there's what we call add-ons, the supplements. In fact, most of the time, we don't usually start with HRT, the hormone replacement therapy. You'll find we'll start giving you supplements to help you through this transition. But if it doesn't work, we can step it up to hormone replacement therapy. Apart from a certain group of women where we need to start HRT immediately. So, and there are all manner of examples of these supplements in the market. I'm sure if you go back to your villages and ask the old women, they'll tell you what they used to use. There are certain herbs that they used to use during this transition period. But commonly what we have in the market, St. John's wort, we have mica. It's called maca. Sorry, maca. There's red, black, and yellow maca. But I think the red one is best used for menopausal transition. We have soy, the soybean. That one I'm sure we are all aware of in this church, isn't it? The soybean. So it can come in capsule form, in powder form. It's available. If you go to, especially this pharmacies that stock alternative medicines, I will not mention names. I'm not going to promote anyone. But if you go to the pharmacies and ask for supplements for menopause, there are so many of them in the market. But before you use them, it's important that you discuss with your doctor. One of the most critical things to manage in the perimenopausal transition and postmenopausal age is bone health. The one thing that we don't usually pay attention to. Don't wait until you get fracture number 1, number 2, number 3. You can actually prevent this. So that's why it's important to see the gynecologist when you're going through this transition. Then there are ways for us to actually check your bone density and see whether you need any support or not. Okay? In terms of dryness that's affecting one's the sexual bit of your life, there are creams. There's estrogen creams or gels that can be used to reduce on the dryness. I know our main concern is usually the risk for cancers, but compared to oral intake or injections or patches and such things, the vaginal estrogen cream is actually, the risk is very low to cause cancers. Of course, there are patients who would say don't use estrogen at all. Patients who are at high risk of breast cancer or uterine cancer, those ones we put them on the side and we offer them something else. So take home message, 1, know your family history. Know your family history. If there's a history of these gynecological cancers, as you're approaching that age, for heaven's sake, go for routine screening. Prevention is better than cure. Okay? Number 2, a very healthy lifestyle will do you wonders. It will save you the agony. Okay? It might not totally eliminate the symptoms, but it will make it a much, much easier transition. Number 3, please talk with your partner. Let him know what you're going through, and together you can navigate through this. And of course, last but not least, involve God in everything. He had a reason for creating menopause. If he had a reason for this, he will surely see you through it. Okay? I think I will end it there because I was told there are some questions that might come at the end of it. Even from the men, yes. You can ask on behalf. Or if the men ask, they might get the side eye today when they go home. Eh? So let's just get it from the women. Okay. So I hope we are all at par. We are more informed about menopause, the stereotypes, the myths around it. I hope we can debunk them today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My question is, once you experience those symptoms, like the mood swings and hot flashes, do they keep on until you die, or do they reach a certain point and they stop?
Okay. Good question. It's different for different women. For most women, the symptoms, hot flashes and night sweats, will last between 6 months to about 2 years for the ones who get to experience, most of them. But there are some who will report even 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. But usually, if it's lasting too long, it is important that you are reviewed and we rule out any other possible cause of such things. Because the thyroid can misbehave and it could be the reason for what's going on. TB can cause night sweats. Advanced cancer can cause night sweats. So it is important that you don't just assume. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you so much for the topic on menopause. I want to speak and ask a question on a myth, which on my side I don't know about it. How is menopause related with the female sexuality? There are some myths around. With the advancement of technology, we come across issues. And there is something which goes along with the menopause and sexuality. How does it affect a woman's sexuality?
Okay. All right.
I'm being reminded here the activeness of the woman.
Oh,
Thank
okay, okay. It's actually not a myth. There's a lot of truth to it. Because this is there's a psychological aspect of it. This woman is going through a lot of changes. It's almost like when you're going through adolescence and you're trying to figure yourself out. So it's so confusing for the woman herself. So there's a psychological aspect of it where she's really just struggling to understand herself. So she really has no space to try and understand your needs as well, quote unquote. And then there is an element of just the reduced hormones. Estrogen is our feel-good hormone in women. It is what makes us feel young, nice skin, nice hair. It is what makes you feel like a woman. So when it goes down, you can imagine the reverse happens. So the woman starts having these self-esteem issues. She looks at herself in the mirror and looks at her photo of 20 years ago and she's thinking, something changed along the way. And it puts her self-esteem down. That's another reason. Then we discussed dryness. And as long as she's dry, it's going to be a very uncomfortable experience for her. And as long as it's uncomfortable, the brain works in such a way that if I'm anticipating pain, I shut off. That's just a normal human reaction. If I'm anticipating pain, everything else stops and I just concentrate on the pain I'm anticipating, the discomfort I'm anticipating. And that alone makes her today, she has a headache. Tomorrow, there will always be a reason for her to shy away. And it's mainly because of the dryness. But if you discuss this with your partner, discuss this with your healthcare provider, there are ways to handle this so that it is more pleasurable for the woman. When this estrogen support does not help, because usually we give you a trial for about 3 months. If it's not helping, we can even give testosterone patches to the woman and it improves their libido. So the other issue, again, is not just dryness, but the libido can actually go down. This is why I really insist that the woman walks this journey very closely with the partner so that he understands it's not that I despise you. It's not that I don't find you attractive anymore. It's just what I'm going through. Then you learn to handle her gently. Yes. So it's not a myth. There's truth to it. Yes. Ladies first.
Okay. My question is it possible for a woman to get pregnant after menopause?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, there's menopause, there's postmenopause, and there's a perimenopausal transition. So menopausal transition is those few years as you're transitioning to menopause. So women get surprised when they tell you, mi hata nilikuwa nimefika menopause. I knew that because my periods have been gone for the last 7 months. And then I still thought it was menopause going on until my tummy started misbehaving. And then I went to the doctor and then they discovered I'm pregnant. It can happen. In fact, that critical period where the period starts to misbehave, I encourage the women to be very vigilant. I don't know what you'll do, what method you'll use. I will leave it to your discretion, but I assure you, surprise babies will come. So don't lie to yourself. Unless you've gone through the whole 12 months, as we said. You've gone through, now you're in the postmenopausal period. Then it's unlikely. The only way then in the postmenopausal period that you can be pregnant is through IVF. We have had such instances where a woman offers to be a surrogate and they're in their 60s. Then as long as you have a healthy uterus, then the embryo is implanted. Yes.
Thank you so much for this candid talk. First, the happiness index in the family is when the woman in the home is happy. Man can be as rude as unpredictable as much as possible, but when the lady of the house is happy, there is happiness in the family. How can we guarantee that despite what you have said, through the exercise, nutrition, this can be overcome without even realizing that there is menopausal transition? And is there an age limit beyond which, especially post-menopausal transition, that this kind of experience would cease completely, so that the woman of the house or the lady of the house is happy again to make everyone in the house happy, and bring everyone to church without much stress.
Okay. I agree with you. The woman is really the pillar in the home. Cindy, yeah, when she's unhappy, everyone is unhappy. Now, apart from medication, when it comes to the psychosocial bit of this journey, we also offer what we call CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, to the woman. And it really, really makes a huge difference to go through counseling. There's individual counseling, then there's partner, couple counseling, so that she learns she can predict the triggers, what tends to tick her. She learns to moderate her reactions to things. Counseling does it plays a huge role in transitioning through this. And then just knowing that I have the support of my partner gives me peace of mind, so that my partner can also take over the idea of disciplining the children, so that I do not go overboard when they do something silly. Then when I go overboard, you don't correct me in front of the children or in front of other people. When we are quietly in the bed, we're like, hey, my dear, what happened there? Eh? So just supporting her, go through counseling together, and she also has her own individual counseling to express her own concerns, her own fears about this journey, will really go a long way. It doesn't take too long. Usually for most women, 1 or 2 years after menopause, you'll find they've settled, unless there are other underlying issues like thyroid disease. Now that one can really play a number on the emotions, and it can be long-term if it's not corrected. I hope it answers your question. There was a, yes.
Thank you for the very clear exposition that you have given on menopause. Now, I'm requesting that you give a comment on the relationship between the severity of the symptoms of menopause for a woman who has practically given birth the whole of her life. Like, for example, some of us who are born before or around independence, our mothers gave birth basically up to or even after the period of menopause, and therefore it was thought that that contributed in decreasing the severity of the symptoms. And also say something about those women who give birth at a very young age and stop, probably maybe by the age of 20s or 22, they already have their 5 children and they stop, and the severity of the symptoms. And now, those ones these days that we know give birth at around menopause or beyond because they are professionals. What is the relationship between those 3 cadres of women and the severity of the symptoms in menopause? Thank you.
Okay. Now, interesting question. And that question comes up quite a lot in my practice. We do not have enough studies to point and say multiple childbearing is protective, or early versus late is protective. We don't have enough studies to that effect. But this has come up from different clients, from different ethnic groups, which makes me think there might be something to that effect. I will leave it at that. I have not come across quality studies that have addressed it. But yes, this is something that has been raised by certain clients, and I can't say it's just a myth from one community. it's something that has been raised by clients from different communities. So there could be something to it. We are not saying that you go get many babies. Pata kulingana na uwezo wako. Mm-hmm. Any other question? Any concern? All right. I think we'll wrap it up with that so that we don't take up too much time because the other activities coming up. It was lovely talking to you again. I will see you tomorrow afternoon as we tackle adolescent health. I look forward to this crowd plus the youth as well. There's a wealth of knowledge to learn tomorrow. Thank you.